Welcome, dear listener, to another gentle chapter from the boring, sleepy library where the forgotten pages of history drift like leaves in moonlight. Tonight, we slip quietly into a time of lanterns and laced gloves, whiskey whispers and lawless towns. This isn't the Wild West you've seen in movies, and if you feel inspired, leave a little note in the comments. Where in the world are you listening from? What time is it where your eyes are closing? No, this is the version written in the margins by women who wore corsets and commanded empires, madams. Not just figures in shadowy hallways, but sharp-minded strategists who turned scandal into structure and managed fortunes behind the swing of saloon doors. We're traveling to the 1870s, a place of dust and gold, danger and grace. If you find yourself drifting with us tonight, a quiet like or subscribe would mean a great deal. Now, lie back, let your breath slow, let your bones sink. And as you drift, know this. You've just awakened in a cramped little room above a saloon. The mattress is lumpy. The night air smells of desert heat and piano keys, and your story is about to begin. The first thing that hits you is the smell. Not just body odor, though there's plenty of that. It's a complex mixture of wood smoke from the pot-bellied stove in the corner, cheap perfume trying to mask everything else, and the unmistakable scent of last night's whiskey and tobacco that seems permanently embedded in the rough wooden floorboards. Your nose wrinkles as you catch another layer. Horse manure from the street below, wafting through the thin cotton curtains that barely cover the single window. The sounds come next. A piano being tuned somewhere downstairs, the notes repeating and adjusting. The clatter of a wagon passing by on the dusty street, wheels catching on the uneven ground. Voices calling to each other, a mixture of English, Spanish, and what sounds like German. A woman's laugh, sharp and practiced, cuts through it all. You're lying on a narrow iron bed frame with a lumpy horsehair mattress that pokes in all the wrong places. The scratchy wool blanket covering you is faded red, once fancy, but now worn thin in spots. No sheets, those are for the high-end establishments, and this ain't one of them. Next to the bed sits a chipped ceramic wash basin with water that's already gone lukewarm, a sliver of harsh lye soap beside it. The room itself is tiny, just enough space for the bed, a wobbly three-legged table with a coal oil lamp, and a battered trunk that holds all the worldly possessions of whoever calls this place home. The walls are thin enough that you can hear someone snoring in the next room. On a nail by the door hangs a faded calico dress, a pair of worn leather boots beneath it. Welcome to 1878. This is life for a soiled dove in a western mining town. Good news, you're not actually one of the working girls. Bad news, you're the madam who runs this place. In the American West of the 1870s and 1880s, being a madam was pretty much the only route to independent wealth that a woman could have. Think about it. Women couldn't vote. Most respectable jobs were closed to them. They couldn't get business loans from banks. Hell, they could barely own property in most places without some man's name attached to the deed. But madams, these women found the loophole in society's rules. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, your muscles complaining with every movement. Running a brothel isn't exactly restful work. You've been up until the early hours, making sure the customers behaved themselves, that the money changed hands properly, that none of your girls were being mistreated or holding back on your cut. Your head throbs slightly from the 2 glasses of whiskey you allowed yourself. Good for business to drink with customers, bad for your head the next morning. As you stand, your bare feet meet rough wooden planks that haven't seen a proper scrubbing in years. There are gaps between some boards wide enough to see the saloon below. The splinters are a daily hazard. You reach for a worn cotton wrapper to throw over your chemise before heading to the wash basin. The water is cold now, but you splash some on your face anyway. No mirror here. Those are expensive and easily broken in a place where drunken cowboys and miners are frequent visitors. You know your face by feel anyway. The lines at the corners of your eyes that weren't there 5 years ago, set of your mouth that's grown harder over time, You're 35 now. Been running this place for nearly 7 years. Not the fanciest brothel in town, but not the worst either. You've got 6 girls working for you, 3 in rooms along this narrow hallway, 3 more in the small building out back. Most madams in town started out as working girls themselves. Some still take special customers, the wealthy ones, the ones with power who might be useful. But not you. You figured out early that the real money wasn't in selling your own company, but in taking a percentage from others. Downstairs, you hear the bartender starting his day, glasses clinking as he sets up. Time to get moving. You've got supplies to order, a sheriff to pay off, and a new girl arriving on the afternoon stage who needs to be shown the ropes. You're pulling a dark blue skirt and white shirtwaist. Practical clothes for the business side of your day. Later, you'll change into something more impressive. Silk, if you've got it. Velvet, if you don't. Part of being a successful madam is looking the part. Customers expect it, and appearances matter in this business. The famous madams like Maddie Silks in Denver or Jenny Rogers knew exactly how to use their appearance to project success. If you look successful, you attract a better class of customer and can charge higher prices. It's basic business sense, but with a feminine twist. These women wore the finest dresses, dripped with jewelry, and made sure everyone in town knew they were doing well. Speaking of Maddie Silks, there's a story that when she first arrived in Denver in the 1870s, she rolled into town with 4 girls she'd hired in Kansas City. But they didn't just travel straight there. Maddie was smart. She had what she called a portable boarding house set up in her coach. The girls conducted business at every mining camp along the way. By the time they reached Denver, they'd already made enough to set up shop in style. That's the kind of thinking that separated successful madams from the rest. They saw opportunities where others just saw hardship. You tighten the laces of your boots, wincing as they press against a blister from yesterday. Comfortable footwear isn't really an option in your line of work. The dainty boots with their pointed toes and tuned heels are murder on your feet, but they're part of the uniform. At least you're not wearing the corset yet. That torture device can wait until evening. As you finish dressing, your mind runs through the accounts. Last night was profitable. A payday for the mines means free spending customers. You keep the books yourself, not trusting anyone else with the figures. In your bottom drawer, under a false panel, sits a leather-bound ledger with every transaction carefully noted. Another book, the one you'd actually show if some do-good lawman came asking questions, sits in plain sight with considerably smaller numbers. Most successful madams were excellent with money. Had to be. Jenny Rogers, the queen of the row in Denver, invested her brothel earnings into the city's irrigation and reservoir infrastructure, turned a tidy profit on that too. Maddie Silks bought real estate all over Denver. By the time she retired, she owned half a block of prime downtown property. The system worked like this. A girl might charge $5 for her company. That same $5 covered her room and board at your establishment. Anything she made beyond that basic amount could be used for clothes, medicine, or saved for the future. But some madams weren't that generous. If a girl didn't make a minimum, she might find herself out on the street. Business was business, after all. You weren't that harsh. You understood that everyone has off nights or times when they're under the weather. But you did take 50% of everything your girls made. It's providing room, board, some protection, and an established clientele in return. Beyond the basic exchange of services, there was alcohol. Lots of it. Watered down and marked up by as much as 60%. That's where the real money was. Get the customers drinking, get them paying for drinks for the girls, and the profits rolled in. Some saloon girls earned commissions on the drinks they sold. But that money usually went right back to the madam to cover the cost of fancy clothes or other necessities. You make your way downstairs, each step on the narrow staircase creaking loudly enough to announce your arrival. The saloon is quiet this early, just the bartender wiping down the already spotless bar top with a rag that's seen better days. He nods at you respectfully. He knows who signs his pay vouchers. "Morning, Miss Catherine," he says, using the name you've adopted for your business dealings. Your real name hasn't passed your lips in years. Most madams operated under assumed names. It was safer that way. "Morning, Thomas. Any trouble after I turned in?" you ask, surveying the room for damage from last night's festivities. "Nothing worth mentioning." "Had to escort Mr. Wilson home again? Man can't hold his liquor worth a damn." You nod, making a mental note to suggest to Mr. Wilson's wife that she might want to keep a closer eye on her husband's whereabouts. Not that you'd actually say anything. Discretion is another cornerstone of your business. But it's good to keep track of which customers might become problems. The saloon itself is fairly typical for a mining town. Long bar along one wall, scarred from years of bottles and glasses, and occasionally knives. A dozen small tables with mismatched chairs. A small raised platform at the far end serves as a stage for the piano player and occasionally a singer. If you can find one who won't rob you blind, the walls are decorated with faded prints of racehorses and hunting scenes torn from Eastern magazines, plus a large cracked mirror behind the bar that makes the room look twice as big. It's not the House of Mirrors in Denver with its ceiling two-floor looking glasses and velvet furniture, but it serves its purpose. Men don't come here for the decor anyway. A sharp knock at the back door pulls you from your thoughts. It's too early for customers. It must be the supply wagon with the weekly delivery of whiskey and beer. "I'll get it," you tell Thomas, heading toward the storeroom. It's not the supply wagon. Instead, you find yourself face to face with Sheriff Mills, his expression grim beneath his bushy mustache. Your heart sinks. This can't be good news. "Morning, Catherine," he says, removing his hat. "At least he's being polite, that's something, Sheriff. What brought you so early?" "Our usual arrangement isn't due until Friday. Arrangement being the monthly payment that ensures the sheriff finds more important things to do than raid your establishment." "Not about that. There's been some trouble over at Lily's place." Lily ran a smaller brothel on the edge of town, catered to minors mostly, the ones who couldn't afford your prices. "What kind of trouble?" you ask, already suspecting the answer. "She's dead. Stabbed one of her girls, too." A chill runs through you despite the growing warmth of the morning. This business has always been dangerous, but murders aren't common, even in a rough town like this. "Any idea who did it?" The sheriff shakes his head. "Working on it. Just thought you should know. Might want to be extra careful for a while." You nod, your mind already racing through the implications.
"Oh."
"You'll need to hire an extra man for security. Warn the girls to be especially watchful. Maybe raise prices temporarily to cover the additional expense." "Thanks for letting me know," you say, reaching into your pocket and pulling out a silver dollar. Not a bribe exactly, just a token of appreciation for the warning. Okay. The sheriff pockets it without comment and replaces his hat. "Take care, Catherine." After he leaves, you lean against the doorframe for a moment, letting the reality sink in. Lily dead. You didn't know her well. Competition keeps its distance. But she'd been around for years. A fixture in town, just like you. It's a stark reminder of the precarious position you occupy. For all the money you've made, for all your business acumen and careful planning, you're still just a madam in a town that tolerates your presence, but would shed no tears at your passing. This is the reality that women like Maddie Silks, Jenny Rogers, and countless others faced every day. They built empires out of desire and loneliness, made fortunes where other women couldn't even find jobs. But they always existed on the edge of disaster. One angry customer, one jealous competitor, one moral crusade by the townspeople. Everything they'd built could disappear overnight. Yet they persisted. They expanded their businesses, paid off local politicians, and added legitimacy to their trade however they could. Maddie Silks managed to acquire a liquor license in 1885. Something nearly unheard of for a woman-owned business at the time. You straighten up and head back into the saloon. No time for dwelling on what might happen. There's business to attend to. You settle at a small desk in the corner to review last night's receipts. The numbers are good. Another month like this, and you can afford to replace the cracked window upstairs and maybe get that new piano you've been eyeing. Music brings in customers, and customers bring in money. The economics of running a brothel in the Wild West were straightforward, but required careful management. Alcohol sales provided steady income. Special services brought in larger sums, but were more irregular. Rooms could be rented by the hour or the night, depending on the customer's needs and wallet size. Everything had its price, clearly established and non-negotiable. As you tally figures in your ledger, you can't help thinking about what Sheriff Mills said. Lily's death is a reminder of how quickly things can change in this business. You've been putting aside money for years now, hoping to eventually buy a small property somewhere quiet, somewhere no one knows your history. Most madams dreamed of retiring before age caught up with them. Few managed it. The famous Pearl DeVere of Cripple Creek tried to maintain her business well into her 30s, throwing elaborate parties and charging astronomical sums for her company. She died of a morphine overdose in 1897 after one such celebration. Jenny Rogers ran her house of mirrors into the early 1900s. But life took its toll on her health and spirit. You look up from your calculations as the front door opens, letting in a shaft of bright morning sunlight. One of your girls, Sadie, enters, carrying a basket of fresh bread from the bakery down the street. The smell hits you immediately, yeast and flour and warmth, momentarily overpowering the lingering odor of stale beer and tobacco. "Morning," she calls cheerfully. At 22, Sadie still has the energy and optimism that you sometimes envy. She hasn't been in the business long enough for it to wear her down yet. "Morning," you reply. "Any news from town?" Sadie sets the basket on the bar and begins unpacking the loaves. Mrs. Peterson, at the bakery, says her husband's thinking of running for mayor, and the Marshall boys got into another fight at the Silver Dollar last night. Oh, and the stage is running late today. Wheel trouble outside of Carson City. You nod, making a mental note about the delayed stage. Your new girl will be arriving late then. More time to prepare. Sadie continues chatting as she arranges the bread, sharing all the gossip she's picked up on her morning errand. This is another valuable service your girls provide: information. In a town where everyone has secrets, knowing who's doing what with whom is currency all its own. You let her talk while your mind drifts to the practicalities of the day ahead. There's the new girl to settle in. A delivery of proper French champagne supposedly arriving for your wealthier customers. The monthly doctor's visit to arrange. You insist on regular health checks for all your employees, something not every madam bothers with. The life of a Wild West madame was part businesswoman, part mother figure, part warden. You managed personalities and profits with equal care. You settled disputes, nursed the sick, protected your girls from abusive customers, and still had to maintain the facade of genteel hospitality that kept the money flowing. And despite all that work and all that risk, society would never acknowledge your contributions or success. The same townspeople who visited your establishment under cover of darkness would cross the street to avoid you in daylight. The businessmen who invested your money and profited from your success would never introduce you to their wives. You existed in a liminal space, essential to the functioning of the community, but officially invisible. Yet the madams of the West were often among the wealthiest and most influential women of their time. They owned property when most women couldn't. They ran businesses when most women were limited to domestic work. They built fortunes when most women were financially dependent on men. As the morning stretches on, the saloon begins to come to life around you. The piano player arrives, his clothes rumpled from sleeping wherever he found space last night. More of your girls appear, some brighted and ready for the day, others still fighting off sleep or the effects of last night's drinks. Thomas starts slicing the fresh bread for the simple lunch you offer. Bread, cheese, and occasionally stew if business has been good. You stretch, feeling the tightness in your shoulders release just a bit. Getting more comfortable in your chair as the warmth of the day starts to seep through the thin walls. Your body softens slightly, sinking deeper into the wooden seat. There's still so much to do, but for a moment, you allow yourself to relax, to breathe, to simply be. The rhythms of the day continue around you as you settle deeper into this moment of quiet. You hear someone sweeping upstairs, the soft whisper of a broom against wooden floors. The smell of coffee brewing now joins the fresh bread. Your muscles release a little more tension as you adjust your position. That's it, nice and easy. Your breathing naturally slows as you watch the dust motes dancing in the beam of sunlight coming through the window. You feel yourself becoming more comfortable with each breath. In this rare moment of stillness, you observe the saloon slowly awakening. The girls are moving through their morning routines, a yawn escaping your lips as the warm spring air drifts through the open doorway where the sheriff had been standing only moments ago. The moment of peace is broken by the sound of shattering glass upstairs, followed by cursing. You sigh. The life of a madam is never quiet for long. I'll deal with it, you say to Thomas, who's already looking toward the ceiling with concern. The stairs creak under your boots as you climb back to the second floor. The noise came from Rose's room. She's one of your newer girls, barely 20, with a temper that flares hot and fast. Everything all right there? Your call through the thin door? Fine, comes the sharp reply, followed by the sound of something else breaking. You don't bother knocking. As madam, every room in this establishment is yours to enter as needed. The door swings open to reveal Rose standing amid the shards of what used to be a porcelain wash basin. Her face is flushed, eyes bright with anger or tears or both. Want to tell me what that was about? You ask, careful to keep your voice neutral. You've learned that in this business, judgment only makes situations worse. Johnny Wilson promised to take me away from here, she says, her voice cracking. Said he was saving up to buy us a little place outside of town. Then I saw him this morning heading into the stagecoach office with Martha from the millinery shop. They had bags packed. You've heard this story before. It's different names, different details, but always the same ending. Some customer makes promises to a girl, fills her head with dreams of respectability and escape, then disappears. Sometimes they just leave town. Sometimes they show up again next payday pretending the promises were never made. That basin's coming out of your earnings, you say, because business is business. But your tone is gentler than your words. Get cleaned up and come downstairs for some breakfast. I've got a new dress that might fit you. Green silk would look good with your hair. It's a small kindness. But in this world, small kindnesses are sometimes all you can offer. Rose nods, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. Back downstairs, you find more of your girls have emerged from their rooms. Lucy, the oldest at 29, is helping Thomas slice bread. Mary and Beth, sisters who came west after their parents died in a factory fire back east, are sweeping the floor and arranging chairs. Everyone has a job to do before the customers arrive later. This was how the better brothels operated, like well-managed households. The women weren't just there for the customer's pleasure. They maintained the establishment, prepared food, and kept the place clean and orderly. Some madams insisted their girls learn to read and write, to speak properly, to discuss current events. The more accomplished the girls, the higher the prices that could be charged. Jenny Rogers was famous for being selective about her soiled doves. She chose only the most attractive, well-mannered young women for her house of mirrors. She clothed them elegantly, housed them in luxurious surroundings, and charged accordingly. Her establishment became known as one of the finest brothels in the West, attracting wealthy businessmen, politicians, and visitors who wanted more than just a quick transaction. Your place isn't quite that fancy, but you have standards. Your girls don't work if they're sick or injured. They get regular medical examinations. You don't allow excessive drinking while they're working. And you keep a close eye on customers who might become violent. Not every madam was so careful, but you learned early that healthy content employees are good for business. A knock at the front door interrupts your thoughts. It's still too early for regular customers. "I'll get it," Lucy says, wiping her hands on her apron before crossing to the door. She returns a moment later with a young woman who looks like she hasn't slept in days. Her dress, once good quality, is travel-stained and crumpled. She clutches a small carpet bag with white-knuckled hands. "She's looking for work," Lucy explains, giving you a quick up-and-down assessment of the newcomer with her eyes. "I'm Catherine," you say, extending your hand. "I run this establishment." "Emily," the young woman replies, her voice barely above a whisper. Her handshake is limp, uncertain. "Emily Mitchell." "Well, Emily Mitchell, you look like you could use a hot meal and a wash before we discuss anything else." "Lucy, show her to the back room and find her something clean to wear." Lucy leads the nervous young woman away. You wonder what her story is. Most girls don't choose this life as their first option. They come to it through necessity, desperation, or lack of alternatives. Some are widows with no means of support. Some have been abandoned by husbands or lovers. Some are running from abusive homes. Some were introduced to the trade by mothers or sisters already in it. In the harsh reality of the American frontier, women had few options for independence. Could marry, teach, school, if educated enough, work as maids or laundresses for pitiful wages, or enter the sporting life. For a woman alone in the world, especially one without family or connections, the choice often wasn't much of a choice at all. An hour later, Emily sits across from you at one of the saloon tables, now dressed in a borrowed dress of Lucy's that's too large for her slight frame. She's eaten a bowl of stew and half a loaf of bread, like someone who hasn't seen a proper meal in days. Some color has returned to her pale cheeks. "So you say, pouring her a cup of coffee from the pot Thomas has brought over, or tell me what brings you here." Her story spills out in fits and starts. She was a governess for a wealthy family in San Francisco. The master of the house made advances. When she rejected him, he accused her of stealing a silver hairbrush. His wife believed him. Emily fled before the police could be called, with only what she could carry and the money she'd managed to save. "I tried to find proper work," she says, staring into her coffee cup, "but without references, ... You nod. It's a common enough tale. Society offers women few protections, and even fewer second chances. "Have you done this kind of work before?" you ask directly, no point in dancing around the subject. She shakes her head, a flush rising from her neck to her cheeks. "No, ma'am." "Then why come here? This isn't an ordinary boarding house." Emily raises her eyes to meet yours, and you see something there beyond desperation. Determination. "Because I heard you run a clean place," she says, "that you treat your employees fairly. And because I have nowhere else to go." You consider her for a long moment. Taking on an inexperienced girl means time spent training, potential awkwardness with customers, possible drama when the reality of the work sets in. But something about her steady gaze, despite her circumstances, intrigues you. "We'll try a week," you decide. "We'll start by helping with the cleaning and serving drinks. If that goes well, we'll discuss the rest. Lucy will show you the ropes. You'll get room and board, plus 10% of what you make. After the first month, if you're still here, that goes up to 20%. It's a fair offer, better than many madams would make, but still heavily weighted in your favor. This is a business after all, not a charity." Emily nods, relief washing over her features. "Thank you. I won't disappoint you." "See that you don't," you reply, rising from the table. "Lucy will show you where you'll sleep." Lucy leads Emily upstairs. Thomas approaches with a folded piece of paper. "Message came while you were talking," he says, handing it to you. The note is brief, written in the flowing script of Madame Rosalie, who runs the most expensive brothel in town. She's summoning the town's madams to a meeting tonight at her place. It's unusual, but given what happened to Lily, not unexpected. The madams of a town, while competitors, often maintained a wary alliance. They set prices together to prevent undercutting. They warned each other about violent customers. They sometimes shared the cost of bribing officials or hiring protection. Like any business leaders, they recognized that some forms of cooperation benefited everyone. The famous Madams of Denver, Maddie Silks, Jenny Rogers, and others were known to collaborate when necessary, even as they competed fiercely for customers and prestige. When the city council tried to shame them by requiring prostitutes to wear yellow ribbons, they turned the ordinance on its head by dressing entirely in yellow from head to toe, creating a spectacle that eventually forced the council to rescind the order. You fold the note and tuck it into your pocket. The meeting will mean leaving the saloon during evening hours. Not ideal, but necessary. You'll have Thomas watch things while you're gone. The day progresses with the usual tasks. You review supplies with Thomas, making note of what needs ordering. You settle a minor dispute between Mary and Beth over a borrowed hairpin that escalated into accusations about a stolen customer. You review the books again, considering whether it's time to raise prices. The new mining operation that opened north of town has brought in workers with money to spend. By late afternoon, the saloon is ready for business. The floors have been swept, the spittoons emptied and cleaned, the bar stocked. Fresh sawdust has been scattered across the floor to absorb spills and make cleanup easier tomorrow. The piano has been tuned as best as your regular player can manage with his limited skills. The girls are dressing for the evening, transforming from the practical women who cleaned and cooked all day into the fantasy figures who will entertain tonight. Corsets tighten to create exaggerated hourglass figures. Hair arranged in elaborate curls and waves, rouge applied to cheeks and lips. Perhaps a bit of powder to hide blemishes or signs of fatigue. You retreat to your own room to change as well. The practical business clothes of the day are replaced by a gown of deep burgundy satin, still elegant despite being several years out of fashion. A gold locket hangs at your throat, a gift from a customer years ago who had more money than sense. Your hair, showing threads of gray now, is pinned up in a style that suggests sophistication without trying too hard for youth. The transformation isn't just physical. As you dress, you feel yourself becoming the persona your customers expect. Worldly. Slightly detached, with a cine-tall air that somehow remains approachable. Being a madam is a performance as much as it is a business position. By the time you return downstairs, the first customers are already arriving. Miners mostly, their faces still bearing the grime of the day's work, despite attempts to wash up. They order whiskey at the bar, their eyes roving over the girls who have positioned themselves strategically around the room. You make your rounds, greeting regulars by name, introducing yourself to newcomers. Your manner is warm but reserved. You are friendly but not familiar. You laugh at their jokes, but maintain a certain distance. This careful balance is part of your role, accessible enough to make them comfortable spending money, remote enough to command respect. The evening proceeds as most do. Drinks flow, the piano player pounds out popular tunes, occasionally joined by Rose, has a surprisingly sweet singing voice when she's not breaking basins. Men pay for dances with the girls, which sometimes lead to more private transactions upstairs. You oversee it all with a practiced eye, intervening only when necessary to maintain order. At 9 o'clock, you catch Lucy's attention and signal that you're leaving for your meeting. She nods, understanding that she's in charge until you return. Lucy has been with you longest and knows the business almost as well as you do. If you ever decided to retire, she'd be the one you'd consider selling to. The night air is cool as you step outside, a welcome relief from the heat and smoke of the saloon. The streets are quieter now, most respectable businesses closed for the evening. A few men loiter outside the other saloons in town. Dog barks somewhere in the distance. Madame Rosalie's establishment sits at the north end of town. A large two-story house painted white with green shutters, designed to look like a respectable residence. Only the red lantern hanging discreetly by the door indicates its true purpose. You're admitted by a doorman dressed like a butler, who leads you to a parlor at the back of the house. The room is elegantly furnished with velvet couches, oriental rugs, and oil. Paintings in gilt frames. Crystal decanters of liquor sit on a sideboard along with delicate glasses. 3 women are already present. Madame Rosalie herself, a French woman in her 40s, dressed in midnight blue silk. Harriet Brown, who runs a small place catering exclusively to the town's Chinese population. And Sarah Jenkins, whose establishment sits on the opposite end of town from yours, serving mainly cowboys and cattlemen passing through. Greetings are exchanged with formal politeness. Drinks are poured. Only when everyone is settled does Madame Rosalie address the reason for the gathering. "I assume you've all heard about Lily," she says, her accent thickening as it always does when she's concerned. Everyone nods. News travels fast in a small town, especially news like that. But the sheriff has no suspects, Sarah adds. "Spoke with him this afternoon. We need to take precautions," Madame Rosalie continues. "Hire extra security, perhaps close earlier for a while, and raise our prices to cover the extra expense." Harriet suggests practically. The discussion continues in this vein for some time. Practical considerations, business decisions. No one mentions the fear that underlies the conversation, that what happened to Lily could happen to any of them. Despite the wealth they accumulated, despite the power they wielded in their own domains, madams existed in a precarious position. They operated outside the protection of the law, while simultaneously being subject to its penalties. They were essential to their communities, yet scorned by polite society. They were entrepreneurs in an era when women weren't supposed to have business acumen. Many, like Jenny Rogers and Maddie Silks, tried to gain respectability through charitable works. They donated to churches, orphanages, and hospitals. They bought clothes and school supplies for poor children. They contributed to civic improvements. But acceptance remained elusive. The money was welcomed. The women themselves were not. The meeting concludes with agreements about new security measures and a pact to share information about any suspicious customers. As you prepare to leave, Madame Rosalie draws you aside. "Catherine, a word," she says, guiding you to a quiet corner. "What is it?" you ask, noting the concern in her eyes. "I heard a rumor that Lily had been keeping a book. Names, dates, special requests. The sort of information that could ruin a man's reputation. You feel a chill that has nothing to do with the evening air. You think that's why she was killed?" Madame Rosalie shrugs elegantly. "I think it would be wise for all of us to be careful about what we know and who knows we know it." The warning sits heavily as you make your way back through the quiet streets to your own establishment. Madams often accumulated secrets as valuable as currency. Jenny Rogers once blackmailed a local politician by threatening to expose him as a frequent customer, earning herself $17,000 in the process of fortune at the time. But such knowledge could be dangerous as well as profitable. The saloon is still busy when you return, though the crowd has thinned somewhat. Thomas catches your eye from behind the bar, a slight shake of his head indicating that nothing requiring your attention has occurred in your absence. You make another round of the room, checking on your girls, assessing the mood of the customers. Everything seems to be running smoothly. Emily is serving drinks, her nervousness from earlier replaced by a careful attentiveness. She'll do well, you think, if she can maintain that balance of availability and reserve. As midnight approaches, the pace of the evening slows. Some customers have gone upstairs with your girls. Others have drifted home or to their camp beds at the mine. A few diehards remain at the bar, nursing their drinks and sharing increasingly exaggerated stories. You find yourself at your small desk again, tallying the night's earnings while keeping one eye on the room. The meeting with the other madams has left you thoughtful, considering your own position and future. Most madams didn't have happy endings. For all her success, Maddie Silks fell for a man named Cortez Thompson, who treated her poorly and lived off her earnings. Pearl DeVere died of that overdose. Others succumbed to alcoholism, disease, or violence. Few managed to translate their financial success into the respectability they sought. You've been luckier than most. You've saved carefully, invested where you could, avoided the pitfalls of addiction that claimed many in your profession. You're not rich, but you have enough set aside that retirement isn't an impossible dream. A small house somewhere quiet, perhaps a garden, books to read, no one knowing or caring about your past. The fantasy is pleasant enough that you allow yourself to linger on it, your pen pausing in its tabulation of figures. Your shoulders tense from the day's concerns, and the evening's warning begin to relax slightly. You roll your head gently, feeling the small pops as your neck releases its tightness. From the piano comes a slow, soothing melody. Your player has switched from lively dance tunes to something more appropriate for the waning hours. The rhythm of it matches your breathing, which has slowed without your noticing. Your body feels heavier, more settled in your chair. The familiar sounds of the saloon, murmured conversations, the clink of glasses, occasional laughter, create a comfortable backdrop as you continue your work. The ledger's columns of neat figures provide their own kind of satisfaction order imposed on the chaos of life. Your hand moves smoothly across the page, the scratch of pen on paper joining the ambient noise of the room. You stifle a yawn, stretching your arms above your head before settling back into a more comfortable position. The burgundy satin of your dress rustles softly with the movement. You feel your muscles releasing their tension, your breathing deepening naturally as you continue reviewing the night's transactions. That's it. Nice and easy. The night's nearly done. Most of your girls are settled with customers, and tomorrow you'll need to help Emily adjust to her new life here. The reality of your world slowly sinking in as you notice the piano player has switched to an even gentler tune, something that reminds you of rainfall on a tin roof. Morning comes too soon. Sunlight slanting through the gaps in your curtains to land directly across your eyes. You groan, rolling away from the brightness. Your head pounds slightly, not from drink. You're too careful for that. But from the late hour, you finally retired. The thin mattress creaks as you sit up, your body protesting every movement. Running a brothel is physically demanding work, despite what most folks might think. You're on your feet most of the day and night, constantly moving between the saloon, the girls' rooms, your office, and wherever else needs your attention. The floor is cold beneath your bare feet as you make your way to the wash basin. The water from last night has gone completely cold, but you splash your face anyway. The shock of it helps clear away the cobwebs of sleep. Outside your window, the town is already coming to life. You can hear the blacksmith's hammer ringing from down the street. A wagon rattles by, wheels clattering against the uneven ground. Someone is shouting about fresh milk for sale. You dress quickly in a simple navy skirt and white blouse. No need for the fancy clothes until evening. Your hair is twisted into a simple knot at the nape of your neck. A splash of rose water behind your ears. Not the heavy perfume of night, but something lighter, cleaner. Downstairs, you find Thomas already at work, sweeping up last night's sawdust and debris. Lucy is at the stove in the small kitchen behind the bar, stirring a pot of what smells like oatmeal. "Morning," she says, not looking up from her task. Coffee's ready. You pour yourself a cup, savoring the bitter warmth. Coffee is one luxury you never skimp on, even in the worst financial times. You make sure to buy good beans. It's a small pleasure in a life that offers few refined enjoyments. "How's our new girl?" you ask, leaning against the doorframe. Lucy shrugs, still sleeping. "She worked hard last night. Quick learner. Good. When she wakes up, send her to me. I want to go over the rules again." Every madam had her own set of rules for her establishment. These weren't just about business practices, but about survival in a dangerous profession. Rules like, never go with a customer who's too drunk. Don't leave the building with a customer unless cleared by the madam first. No stealing from customers or other girls. No fighting on the premises. The famous Jenny Rogers had particularly strict rules for her house of mirrors. Her girls were not allowed to drink excessively. They had to maintain a certain standard of dress and behavior at all times. They could not argue with customers no matter how difficult. Breaking these rules meant immediate dismissal, often without the wages owed. Such strictness might seem harsh, but it was necessary. A brothel was judged by the behavior of its women. A place where the girls were drunk, slovenly, or argumentative wouldn't attract the high-paying customers that made the business profitable. You're halfway through your coffee when there's a sharp knock at the front door. Thomas looks to you questioningly. "I'll get it," you say, setting down your cup. When you open the door, you find a young man in a crisp deputy's uniform, his badge still shiny enough to suggest it's relatively new. "Ma'am," he says, touching the brim of his hat politely. "Sheriff sent me to update you on the situation with Lily." You step back, allowing him to enter. "Any news?" "They caught the fellow who did it," the deputy says, looking uncomfortable in the saloon, despite its emptiness. "Drummer passing through town, had blood on his clothes and Lily's brooch in his pocket. Did he say why?" The deputy shifts his weight, said she laughed at him when he couldn't perform. You nod, unsurprised. Male pride is a dangerous thing, especially when wounded. You've seen violence erupt over less in your years running the saloon. "Sheriff wanted all you ladies to know it's handled," the deputy continues. "No need for extra worry. Thank the sheriff for the information," you reply formally. "Will there be a trial?" The young man looks even more uncomfortable. "No, ma'am. He, tried to escape custody this morning. Sheriff had to shoot, which means the sheriff or one of his men took care of the problem permanently, saving the town the expense and trouble of a trial for the murder of a prostitute." You're not shocked. In frontier justice, some lives counted more than others. After the deputy leaves, you share the news with Lucy and Thomas. There's a momentary silence as you all absorb the implications. "Should I tell the girls when they wake up?" Lucy asks. "You consider this?" "Yes, but keep it simple. Man responsible is dead. No need for details that'll just upset everyone." The morning progresses with its usual routines. Girls emerge from their rooms one by one, some alone, some with customers from the night before who sheepishly make their way out the back door. The air fills with the domestic sounds of women living in close quarters, complaints about borrowed items not returned, arguments over whose turn it is to help with breakfast, gossip about customers and each other. Emily appears last, her borrowed dress wrinkled from sleep. She looks better than yesterday, less desperate, more composed. Her eyes find you across the room, and she makes her way over. "Madame Catherine," she says formally. "Lucy said you wanted to see me?" "Yes." You reply, gesturing to a table in the corner where you can have some privacy. "Sit down." She obeys instantly, folding her hands in her lap. The governess training shows in her posture. Straight-backed, shoulders square. "You did well last night," you begin. "Thomas says you're quick and careful with the drinks. No spills, no mistakes in the orders." "Thank you," she says, a faint blush coloring her cheeks at the praise. "I'm grateful for the opportunity. Today we'll need to discuss what comes next." You continue. "Serving drinks is fine to start, but it won't earn you much. Most of our profit comes from other services." Emily's blush deepens, but she meets your gaze steadily. "I understand. Do you? This isn't a decision to make lightly. Once you start down this road, it's hard to turn back. Society doesn't offer second chances to women in our profession. It's a harsh truth, but one she needs to hear. Many girls enter the trade thinking it's temporary, just until they save enough to start over somewhere else. Some manage it, most don't. The stigma follows them, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone's business." Emily is silent for a long moment, her eyes dropping to her hands. "What are my alternatives?" she finally asks. "You could try for a position as a maid or a laundress," you suggest. "Pays poor, and the work's harder than what you do here, but it's respectable. And would anyone hire me now that I've spent a night under your roof?" Her voice is quiet but not accusatory. You don't insult her intelligence with false reassurance. Probably not in this town. You'd need to move on. "With what money?" She looks up again, and you see that same determination you noticed yesterday. I have exactly 23 cents to my name, not enough for a stagecoach ticket, let alone establishing myself somewhere new. It's the predicament so many women faced on the frontier. Without money or family support, options narrowed quickly. The line between respectability and ruin was thin and easily crossed. I know what I'm choosing, Emily says, her voice firmer now.
No.
I've thought about it all night. I don't see another way forward from where I am. You nod, respecting her clear-eyed assessment of her situation. All right then. Lucy will help you get ready. You'll need different clothes for evening work. I'll advance you enough for a proper dress and shoes. Okay. It comes out of your first earnings. Of course.
Us.
Of course, she agrees. One more thing you add, as she starts to rise. Whatever brought you here, whatever you do while you're here, never be ashamed. We provide a service that men seek out willingly. There's no shame in meeting a demand, no matter what the church ladies might say. It's the same advice Maddie Silks reportedly gave to her new girls. Pride was essential armor in this business. Without it, the judgment and scorn of society could crush a woman's spirit entirely. Emily nods, a small smile touching her lips. Yes, ma'am. As she walks away to find Lucy, you can't help wondering how long she'll last. Some girls adapt quickly to the life, finding it preferable to the backbreaking work of laundering or the demeaning position of domestic service. Others never reconcile themselves to it, turning to drink or drugs to numb their feelings until they're no longer suitable for the better establishments. They end up in the cribs, tiny cubicles, where the cheapest prostitutes plied their trade or dead from disease, overdose, or violence. You hope Emily will be one of the survivors like Maddie Silks or Jenny Rogers who parlayed their beauty and business sense into financial security. But you're realistic enough to know not everyone has that combination of qualities needed to thrive in this harsh world. The day continues with its usual tasks and small dramas. Rose is still sulking over Johnny Wilson's betrayal, but has stopped breaking things at least. Mary and Beth have reconciled over the hairpin dispute and are now united in criticizing another girl's choice of evening gown. Thomas reports that you're running low on whiskey and will need to place an order with the supplier. Around midday, a visitor arrives. Dr. Harrison, making his monthly rounds to check on the health of your girls. He's an older man, his hair more salt than pepper now, the permanently stern expression that softens only slightly when addressing you directly. Catherine, he greets you with a nod. The usual examinations, I presume? Yes. Plus we have a new girl who should be checked as well, you reply, leading him to the small back room that serves as your office and, on days like this, an examination room. Dr. Harrison is unusual among frontier physicians in his willingness to treat prostitutes at all, let alone make regular preventative visits. Most doctors would only attend to fallen women in emergencies, and often charged exorbitant rates for doing so. But Harrison is a practical man. He understands that disease doesn't respect moral boundaries. That infections spread from brothel to respectable homes via the husbands and sons who frequent establishments like yours. His monthly visits are as much about protecting the wider community as they are about caring for your girls. The examinations are brief but thorough. Each girl is checked for signs of venereal disease, which would render her unable to work until treated and cleared. Any other health concerns are addressed as well. Persistent coughs that might indicate tuberculosis. Unusual bleeding, signs of pregnancy. When it's Emily's turn, you see her hesitation as she approaches the door to your office. This is often the moment when new girls reconsider their decision, when the clinical reality of the profession hits home. It's necessary, you tell her quietly, for your protection and ours. The doctor is discreet and professional. She nods and enters the room, her back straight as ever. When she emerges 15 minutes later, her face is flushed but composed. All clear, Dr. Harrison announces after the last examination. That new girl, remarkably healthy. No signs of previous activity as she claimed. You pay his fee, higher than what he charges respectable households, but fair, considering the risk to his reputation, and see him out through the back door. It wouldn't do for his regular patients to know he visits your establishment, even in a professional capacity. As afternoon stretches toward evening, the pace of activity in the saloon increases. Girls who've been mending clothes or writing letters to family begin preparing for the night ahead. Thomas stocks the bar and makes sure the spittoons are empty and cleaned. The piano player arrives, slightly less rumpled than yesterday, and begins warming up with scales and simple tunes. You retreat to your room to change into your evening attire. A gown of deep green velvet tonight, slightly out of fashion but still impressive with its tight bodice and flowing skirt. A different piece of jewelry pearl earrings that were payment from a customer who ran short of cash one night. Your hair is arranged more elaborately, with combs holding the gray streaks in a style that suggests elegance without trying too hard for youth. When you return downstairs, you find Emily transformed as well. Lucy has found her a dress of pale blue silk, slightly worn at the seams but still pretty. Her hair has been curled and pinned up, with a few strategic tendrils left to frame her face. Rouge has been applied to her cheeks and lips, darkening their natural color just enough to be noticeable in the dim evening light of the saloon. "Will I do?" she asks, turning slowly for your inspection. "You'll do," you confirm, noting with approval that Lucy has chosen a color that complements Emily's fair coloring and a style that makes the most of her slender figure. Appears matter in this business. As the evening begins and customers start to arrive, you watch Emily carefully. Her first night as more than just a drink server will set the tone for her time in your establishment. She seems nervous but determined, laughing at the right moments, accepting drinks bought for her, allowing men to lead her in clumsy dances to the piano's music. Around 9, you see her speaking intently with a middle-aged man dressed in the clothes of a store clerk or a minor businessman. He's not handsome, but is clean and appears sober, reasonable first customer. They both glance of conversation. They both glance toward you. You give a slight nod and Emily leads him toward the stairs. This is how most transactions occurred in the better brothels. No crude bargaining or explicit discussion of services in the public areas. The girls knew the standard prices for different activities. The men either knew as well or were discreetly informed. The madam's approval was sought before proceeding upstairs. It maintained the illusion of gentility that separated parlor houses from the cribs. Emily returns downstairs about 45 minutes later, her expression neutral as she makes her way to the small desk where you keep the night's accounts. She hands you several bills, which you count and note in your ledger before returning a small portion to her percentage as agreed. "Everything all right?" you ask quietly. She nods, a small smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes lifting the corners of her mouth. "Fine," he was polite. "Good. Take a short break if you need it, then back to the floor." The night progresses smoothly. Your regulars are in good spirits. A new vein of silver has been found in the North Mine, promising steady work for months to come. The piano player is in rare form, his fingers dancing across the keys with unusual skill. A group of men in dusty trail clothes have arrived, their loud voices suggesting they've already been drinking elsewhere. Their leader, a tall man with a week's growth of beard and a scar running along his jawline, scans the room with the predatory gaze of someone looking for trouble rather than pleasure. You make your way toward them, your expression pleasant but watchful. New customers are always welcome, but not those who might disrupt your carefully maintained establishment. Even Rose seems to have recovered from her heartbreak, laughing brightly with a group of cowboys fresh from a cattle drive. Around midnight, a commotion at the front door draws your attention. Gentlemen, you greet them, positioning yourself so that Thomas behind the bar has a clear view of the situation. "Welcome to the Silver Star. What can we offer you this evening?" The scarred man's eyes assess you with a coldness that makes your spine stiffen. "Whiskey," he says shortly, "and girls. Been on the trail 2 weeks." Of course, you reply smoothly. "Thomas will serve you drinks. The girls will join you when they're available. Most of your women are already occupied with other customers, a fact the newcomers clearly note with dissatisfaction. Only Emily and one other girl, Sarah, are currently unaccompanied. The men settle at a table, ordering a bottle of your cheapest whiskey. They drink quickly, their loud conversation and occasional bursts of harsh laughter, creating an undercurrent of tension in the previously relaxed atmosphere. When Sarah approaches their table, offering to join them, the scarred leader pulls her roughly onto his lap. She maintains her professional smile, but you can see the discomfort in her eyes. You move closer, ready to intervene if necessary. "What's your name, girl?" the man asks, his voice carrying across the now quieter room. "Sarah," she replies, trying to shift to a more comfortable position on his knee. "Sarah," he repeats, taking another swig of whiskey. "You look like a girl I knew in Abilene. She wasn't friendly enough. Hope you're friendlier." Implied threat hangs in the air. Thomas has moved from behind the bar, positioning himself near the table. Your other customers are watching warily, some edging toward the door. Violence in a brothel was bad for business. It scared away the better class of customer and attracted the kind you didn't want. "Why don't I show you just how friendly I can be?" Sarah suggests, standing and offering her hand to the man. It's a skilled attempt to move the situation upstairs, away from the public area where trouble could spread. For a moment, it seems to work. The man grins and starts to rise. Then his gaze falls on Emily, who is trying to make herself inconspicuous near the piano. "Wait," he says, sitting back down. "I want that one. The new one." Emily freezes, her eyes darting to you in alarm. You move forward smoothly, inserting yourself between her and the scarred man's line of sight. "I'm afraid Miss Emily is not available at the moment," you say firmly. "She's promised to another customer who's just stepped out temporarily. But Sarah here is one of our most popular girls. You'd be fortunate to have her company." The man's eyes narrow, his hand moving to rest on the gun at his hip. "I said I want that one." The atmosphere in the room has changed completely now. Your regular customers are edging toward the exits. The piano player has stopped mid-song. Thomas has moved closer, his hand beneath the bar where you know he keeps a shotgun. These were the moments that defined a madam's authority. How you handled difficult, potentially violent customers determined whether your establishment was seen as safe and orderly or chaotic and dangerous. Maddie Silks was known for personally ejecting troublemakers, sometimes at gunpoint. Jenny Rogers employed bouncers to handle problems before they escalated. You don't have bouncers, but you do have Thomas, and you have your own reputation for running a place where the girls aren't mistreated, even by paying customers. "Sir," you say, your voice level, but firm. "In my establishment, the girls choose their customers as much as the customers choose them. If you can't accept that, there are other places in town that might better suit your needs." The man stands slowly, his hand still resting on his gun. His companions rise as well, forming a loose semicircle behind him. "Are you refusing to serve us?" he asks, his voice dangerously quiet. "I'm suggesting that your approach might be better received elsewhere." You reply, not backing down, despite the fear knotting your stomach. The broken spoke at the edge of town has girls who might appreciate your directness. It's a calculated risk, directing them to your lowest-end competitor. Either they'll leave peacefully to seek easier prey, or the situation will escalate into violence here and now. For a long moment, no one moves. You can hear the tick of the clock behind the bar, the creak of floorboards as someone shifts their weight, your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. Then the scarred man laughs. The sound is sharp and cold as breaking ice. "Fine," he says, tossing some coins on the table. "Keep your fancy girls. Let's find somewhere more welcoming." As they file out, their threatening presence leaving with them, you feel the tension in your shoulders begin to ease. The room seems to collectively exhale. Thomas moves his hand away from whatever weapon he was gripping beneath the bar. "Thank you," Emily says quietly from behind you. You turn to find her pale but composed. "Part of the job," you reply with a shrug that belies the residual fear still coursing through you. "Take care of our own here." It was true. Despite the competitive nature of the business, despite the harsh economic realities that sometimes forced madams to make difficult decisions about which girls to keep and which to let go. The better brothels operated as communities. The women looked out for each other, shared resources, celebrated each other's successes, and mourned each other's losses. Maddie Silks was known for nursing sick girls back to health rather than simply replacing them, as some madams did. Jenny Rogers loaned money to women trying to establish their own businesses outside the trade. Fanny Porter, a famous Texas madam, maintained relationships with her former employees long after they'd left her establishment, often helping them find husbands or respectable positions. In a world that offered women few protections, they created their own safety nets. The rest of the night passes without incident. The scarred man and his companions don't return. Your regular customers gradually filter back in as word spreads that the trouble has moved on. The piano music resumes, drinks flow, business continues. By the time you close up around 2 o'clock in the morning, you're exhausted. The confrontation drained what energy you had left after a long day. Your feet ache in your too tight boots. Your back protests from hours of maintaining perfect posture. Even your face is tired from the constant performance of being the unflappable Madame Catherine. You dismiss Thomas for the night, assuring him you can handle the final lockup. The girls have all retired to their rooms, some alone, some with customers who've paid for the whole night. The saloon is quiet, except for the occasional creak of the building settling. As you make your final rounds, checking that doors are locked and lamps extinguished, you find Emily sitting alone at the bar, a barely touched glass of whiskey in front of her. Long day, you comment, sliding onto the stool beside her. She nods, staring into her drink. Is it always like this? Like what? So, she gestures vaguely. Intense. That man tonight? The way you handled him? You consider her question, wanting to be honest without scaring her further. Not every day, but often enough that you need to be prepared. She takes a small sip of whiskey, grimacing at the taste. I thought I understood what I was getting into, but I didn't, did I? Few do at the start, you admit. It's not an easy life, but it's not all bad either. What's the good part? She asks, looking at you directly now. You think about this. Independence. More money than most women ever see. The kind of freedom that respectable women don't have. And you add with a small smile, the friendships. The women here, they become like family. Emily nods slowly, absorbing this. I think I'd like that. Family. Get some sleep, you tell her, patting her hand. Tomorrow will be easier. As she heads upstairs, you finish the last of your closing tasks. The night's earnings are safely locked away in your office. The bar is wiped clean. The piano is covered to protect it from dust. Finally, you make your way to your own room, your body crying out for rest. You remove your finery with slow, tired movements, hanging the green velvet gown carefully to prevent wrinkles. The pearl earrings go into a small jewelry box on your dresser. Your hair, showing threads of gray now, is unpinned, falling down your back. In your simple cotton nightgown, with your face scrubbed clean of rouge and powder, you look your age. The fine lines around your eyes and mouth are visible now. It's telling the story of years spent in smoky rooms. It's managing difficult situations. It's building a business in a world that never wanted to acknowledge women like you as businesswomen at all. You settle onto your narrow bed, feeling the familiar lumps of the mattress beneath you. Your body gradually relaxes into the thin padding, finding the comfortable spots worn into shape by years of sleep. The sounds of the night drift through your window. A distant dog barking, the occasional voice of someone making their way home late, the soft rustle of wind through the cottonwood trees that line the main street. Your thoughts drift to the events of the day. Emily's first real night of work, the confrontation with the scarred man, the news about Lily's killer. So much happens in this small world you've created. It's a microcosm of the larger frontier society, with all its dangers and opportunities. Your breathing slows as you settle deeper into the mattress. The weight of the day's responsibilities begins to lift from your shoulders. Your muscles tense from hours of vigilance gradually unwind. A yawn escapes as your body recognizes it's finally time to rest, to gather strength for tomorrow's challenges. Just for a moment, you think, closing your eyes. Just a brief respite while everything is quiet and still. You adjust your position slightly, getting more comfortable as the night deepens around you. The distant sound of wind in the cottonwoods, creating a soothing rhythm that seems to match your heartbeat as it gradually slows. You wake with a start, neck stiff from sleeping in the chair. Gray morning light filters through the windows. For a moment you're disoriented, then the events of last night come rushing back. The confrontation, the sheriff's intervention, the decision to keep everyone inside. Thomas is still at his post by the door, though his head has dropped to his chest in sleep, the rifle still balanced across his knees. The girls are scattered around the saloon in various states of slumber, some curled on makeshift pallets, others using folded arms as pillows on the tables. You stretch, wincing at the pain in your shoulders and back. Too old to be sleeping in chairs, you think ruefully. Then again, you're too old for a lot of things about this life, a fact that's becoming more apparent with each passing year. Rising quietly to avoid waking the others, you make your way to the small kitchen behind the bar. The stove is cold, but you find the remains of yesterday's coffee in a pot. It's bitter and strong, but the warmth and caffeine are welcome as you try to shake off the fog of interrupted sleep. A cup in hand, you return to the main room and gently wake Thomas. He jerks awake, hands tightening on the rifle before he recognizes you. "Easy," you murmur. "It's just me." He relaxes, rolling his shoulders to ease the stiffness. "Morning. Any trouble in the night?" "Not that I know of. I fell asleep at my desk." He glanced toward the still locked front door. "Think our visitors have moved on?" Thomas rises, moving to peer through a gap in the curtains covering the window. The street's quiet, just the usual morning folk heading to work. You consider your options. You can't keep the saloon closed indefinitely, and your girls can't stay locked inside forever. At some point, you'll have to return to normal operations and accept whatever risks come with it. Let's wait till the sheriff makes his rounds. You decide. If he gives the all clear, we'll open as usual tonight. Thomas nods, moving to stoke the stove for breakfast. The noise and activity begin to rouse the others. Girls stretch and yawn, complaining about sore backs and necks from their uncomfortable sleeping arrangements. The piano player, who stayed as well, begins to pick out a gentle morning tune, his fingers moving automatically across the keys despite his still drowsy state. Lucy organizes breakfast, the last of yesterday's bread, some cheese, coffee for those who want it. The mood is subdued but not fearful. These women have faced dangers before. Last night's confrontation was frightening but not unprecedented in their lives on the frontier. Emily sits apart from the others, a cup of coffee clutched in her hands, her expression thoughtful. You join her, settling into a chair at her small table. "Quite an introduction to the business," you comment. 2 days in and already involved in a standoff? She offers a small smile. "Not what I expected. That's certain." She hesitates, then adds, "But I'm still here." There's determination in her voice that you approve of. She's made of sterner stuff than her delicate appearance suggests. "Good," you reply. "This work isn't for everyone, but for those who can handle it, there are worse ways to make a living." And it was true. For all its dangers and social stigma, prostitution on the frontier often provided women with income and independence unavailable through other means. While a laundress might earn $1 to $2 per day for backbreaking work, a prostitute in a decent establishment could make $5, $10 per night. Madams like Maddie Silks and Jenny Rogers accumulated substantial wealth, owning property and businesses at a time when most women were legally and financially dependent on men. Around mid-morning, Sheriff Mills makes an appearance, knocking at the back door rather than the still-locked front entrance. Thomas admits him while you gather the girls in the main room to hear whatever news he brings. "Your troublemakers boarded the eastbound stage at dawn," Mills announces without preamble, Station master confirmed it. They're gone. A collective sigh of relief passes through the room. The immediate threat, at least, has passed. Any chance they'll come back? You ask, not willing to let your guard down completely. Men like that are usually just passing through. By the time they reach the next town, they'll have found new troubles to occupy them. You nod, accepting his assessment. The sheriff shrugs. Possible, but not likely. Thank you for checking, Sheriff, and for your timely arrival last night. Mills touches the brim of his hat in acknowledgement. Just doing my job, ma'am. His gaze sweeps the room, taking in the makeshift sleeping arrangements and the slightly disheveled appearance of your girls. Recommend you all get some proper rest today. Won't do business any good to have your ladies falling asleep on the customers tonight. After he leaves, you announce that the saloon will open as usual this evening, but that everyone should take the day to recover from last night's disruption. The girls disperse to their rooms, eager for the comfort of proper beds after their uncomfortable night on the saloon floor. You retreat to your own room as well, shedding yesterday's clothes and stretching out on your narrow bed with a sigh of relief. Your body sinks into the familiar mattress, muscles gradually releasing their tension. Sleep claims you quickly, pulling you into a deep, dreamless rest. When you wake in late afternoon, you feel renewed. The fear and tension of the previous night have receded, replaced by your usual practical focus on the business ahead. You wash thoroughly, enjoying the luxury of water that's been heated on the stove rather than the cold splash that started your day. As you dress for the evening in a gown of deep purple silk, one of your finest, you consider the events of the past few days. The threat from the scarred man and his companions has passed, but it serves as a reminder of the precarious position you occupy in this frontier town. For all your business acumen, for all the money you've saved and invested, you remain vulnerable, woman alone, running an establishment that exists at the pleasure of men who could shut it down or destroy it at any time. The sheriff who protected you last night could just as easily raid your saloon if public sentiment turned against businesses like yours. This was the reality that all madams faced, even the most successful. They operated within a narrow space between tolerance and condemnation. Always aware that their position could change with the next election, the next moral crusade, the next shift in the town's fortunes, many tried to secure their status through charitable works and community involvement. Maddie Silks was known for buying clothes and school supplies for poor children in Denver. Jenny Rogers contributed to civic improvements. Even Squirrel-Tooth Alice, a Texas madam known for her distinctive dental feature, regularly donated to her local church, though she was not herself welcome to attend services. As you finish dressing, you find yourself thinking about the future. How long can you continue in this business? What comes after? Few madams manage graceful retirements. Many succumb to the hazards of the profession: violence, disease, addiction. Others simply faded from prominence as age made them less appealing to customers who valued youth and beauty. Maddie Silks was one of the exceptions. After years of running successful brothels in Denver, she eventually married a cattle dealer named Jack Reddy and lived out her days in relative respectability. Jenny Rogers was less fortunate, struggling with health problems in her later years before her death in 1909. Your own savings, carefully accumulated and invested over the years, might be enough for a modest retirement somewhere far from here, where no one knows your history. A small house, perhaps, a garden. Books to read, simple pleasures after years of managing the complex, often dangerous business of running a brothel, but not yet. First, there's tonight's business to attend to, tomorrow's supplies to order, next week's accounts to balance. The daily work of survival and success that has defined your life for so long. Downstairs, you find the saloon already coming to life. Thomas has the bar stocked and ready. The piano player is warming up with scales and simple tunes. Your girls, rested after their day off, are in good spirits as they prepare for the evening ahead.
Oh.
Lucy approaches as you survey the room. Everything's ready, she reports. We've got a new girl arriving tomorrow on the afternoon stage. Bessie over at the Broken Spoke recommended her. You raise an eyebrow at this? One of Bessie's girls? Why would she send anyone our way? Lucy shrugs. Apparently the girl was asking about better places to work after what happened with that scarred fellow. Bessie told her to try here if she wanted a safer establishment. It's an unexpected compliment from a competitor, especially one like Bessie, who usually cared little for the welfare of her employees. Perhaps the violent death in her brothel has prompted some reflection on her business practices. We'll see when she arrives, you decide. No promises until I've met her. The evening unfolds without incident. Your regular customers return, apparently unconcerned by the previous night's disturbance. New visitors arrive as well, drawn by the music and the promise of female company after long days of work or travel. You make your rounds, greeting customers, ensuring drinks are served promptly, mediating the occasional minor dispute. The familiar rhythm of the night settles around you, comforting in its predictability after the disruptions of recent days. Emily seems to have found her footing. She moves among the customers with growing confidence, laughing at their jokes, accepting drinks, occasionally leading a man upstairs when terms have been agreed upon. She's a quick learner, adapting to the unspoken rules and expectations of the establishment. By midnight, the saloon is doing brisk business. The piano music has shifted from gentle background tunes to livelier dancing numbers. The noise level has risen with the consumption of alcohol. Laughter, conversation, the occasional shout of greeting when someone new arrives. You find yourself at your small desk, reviewing the night's earnings, while stifling occasional yawns. It's been a long few days, and the lack of proper sleep is catching up with you despite your afternoon rest. Emily approaches as you finish your calculations, handing you her portion of the evening's earnings. Good night, you ask, noting the substantial amount. She nods, a small smile touching her lips. Better than I expected. You're adapting well, you observe. Some girls never get comfortable with the work. I'm not comfortable exactly, she admits, but I'm managing. And it's better than starving or scrubbing floors until my hands bleed. It's a pragmatic assessment that you appreciate. No romantic illusions about the nature of the work, but no self-pity. Either just a clear-eyed understanding of the limited options available to women in her position. I get some rest, you tell her. As she turns to go, she hesitates. Thank you, she says quietly, for taking me in, for keeping us safe last night, for everything. The simple gratitude catches you off guard. In this business, thanks are rare. Most transactions are strictly commercial. Services rendered, payment received. Personal connections, while they exist, are rarely acknowledged so directly. You're welcome, you reply, surprised by the warmth you feel toward this young woman who arrived at your door just days ago, desperate and alone. Perhaps you see something of your younger self in her determination to survive whatever challenges life presents. After Emily leaves, you complete your final tasks for the night. Securing the cash in your hidden safe, checking that doors are locked, ensuring lamps are extinguished. Thomas has already cleaned the bar and retired to his small room off the kitchen. The piano player left hours ago. The saloon is quiet, except for the occasional creak of the building settling. Finally, you make your way upstairs to your own room, your body heavy with exhaustion. You remove your finery with slow, careful movements, hanging the purple silk gown to prevent wrinkles. The matching shoes are placed neatly beside your dresser. Your hair is unpinned, falling down your back. In your simple cotton nightgown, with your face scrubbed clean of rouge and powder, you look your age. The fine lines around your eyes and mouth tell the story of years spent in smoky rooms, managing difficult situations, building a business in a world that never wanted to acknowledge women like you as businesswomen at all. You settle onto your narrow bed, feeling the familiar lumps of the mattress beneath you. Your body gradually relaxes into the thin padding, finding the comfortable spots worn into shape by years of sleep. The sounds of the night drift through your window. A distant dog barking, the occasional voice of someone making their way home late. The soft rustle of wind through the cottonwood trees that line the main street. These sounds have become the soundtrack of your life, as familiar as your own heartbeat. Your thoughts drift to the events of the past few days. The threat from the scarred man and his companions. Emily's arrival and initiation into the life. The ongoing challenge of running a business that exists at the margins of society's acceptance. Needs so many women like you shaped the development of the American West. Though history would rarely acknowledge their contributions, madams who built businesses, employed others, invested in property and infrastructure, contributed to civic improvements. Women who carved out independence in a society that offered them few legitimate paths to self-sufficiency. Maddie Silks, Jenny Rogers, Pearl DeVere, Squirrel-Tooth Alice, Cad Thompson, Dora Dufresne, they and countless others, whose names have been forgotten, were as much pioneers as the men who struck gold or drove cattle herds across the plains. Your breathing slows as these thoughts wind through your mind. The weight of the day's responsibilities begins to lift from your shoulders. Your muscles tense from hours of vigilance gradually unwind. The mattress seems to grow more comfortable beneath you, cradling your tired body. The simple cotton sheets feel cool and soothing against your skin. Your eyelids grow heavy, the events of the day fading as sleep approaches. You feel yourself drifting now, your limbs growing heavier, your thoughts becoming less distinct. The sounds from outside seem more distant, as if coming from far away. Your breathing deepens, each exhale carrying away a little more tension from your body. That's it. Let yourself sink deeper into this comfortable place. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress, the gentle release as each muscle relaxes completely. There's nothing more to do tonight, nowhere to be, no one who needs your attention, just this moment of perfect stillness and comfort. Your mind grows quieter, thoughts slowing like leaves gently floating down a stream. Images from the day may drift through your consciousness. Emily's grateful smile. It's a shine of lamplight on glasses behind the bar, the purple silk of your gown catching the light as you moved through the saloon. But they pass without holding your attention. Even deeper now, your breathing finding a natural, peaceful rhythm. In and out, slow and steady. Your heartbeat calms, your body growing warmer and heavier with each breath. The boundary between wakefulness and sleep becomes blurred, indistinct. And as you surrender to this sweet heaviness, this gentle pulling toward rest, you might wonder briefly about tomorrow and all the tomorrows that will follow. Will you continue in this life you've built, managing your saloon, protecting your girls, accumulating your careful savings? Or will you someday make that change you sometimes dream of? The small house somewhere quiet, the garden, the books, the peaceful anonymity of a life without judgment? The question floats away unanswered as sleep claims you fully now. You're breathing deep and regular, your body completely at rest, safe in this moment of perfect peace. Drifting deeper and deeper into slumber as the night unfolds you in its quiet embrace. The frontier town sleeps around you. The miners in their boarding houses, the merchants in rooms above their shops, the cowboys in trail camps beyond the town limits. Even the saloon girls in their small rooms have found temporary refuge in sleep. A brief escape from the complications of the lives they've chosen, or that have been chosen for them. And you, Madame Catherine, keeper of secrets, manager of desires, businesswoman in a man's world, you sleep too. Your dreams perhaps carrying you to that quiet place you sometimes imagine. Or perhaps returning you to moments from your past experiences that shaped you into the woman you've become.